Okay, this is going to be a fairly short one. Not a whole lot of actual working going on, mostly because what I had to do has basically been done. Since obviously this has changed a little bit since we saw it last. I got the carburetor back on it. Didn't end up putting a carb kit or anything. I made two. The extent of that carburetor is both of your fuel adjustment needles, the fuel bowl needle, the float, and 2 gaskets. That's basically it. There was nothing wrong with the fuel needle or the float needle, so I made 2 of my own gaskets and put it back together. The lift pump, I did take it off and clean it up a little bit, but I was playing with it in my hand and it was pumping air, so I opted to not take it apart and risk tearing a diaphragm. Should be able to get a rebuild kit for it with a diaphragm and yada yada yada, if not a whole different or a whole new lift pump for it. But for now, I just want to see if we can get the thing to run before we get that far into it. So car's been apart, put back on. Lift pump's been cleaned up and put back on. Dad actually just got the grill welded back up today. I don't know how well it'll show up on the video. If you look at it, the bottom is not square with the tractor. Apparently, when whatever carnage happened to rip this grill frame off of the base, it must have twisted the grill frame itself. So when I bolted it back down, I bolted it on so that the top was square with the tractor, so the hood would sit right, but the bottom is not square. Since it's an aluminum casting, probably going to be fairly hard to get that twist out of it without cracking it again. The only thing I could see that might possibly work is if you had a forge and you could heat the whole thing up evenly and try to square it back up. But even at that, squaring it back up without physically being able to bolt it on the tractor is going to be hard. Because if you just sit it on the bench, it's not really bent. I mean, it rocks a little bit, but you get it on the tractor, it's like, wow, that's pretty tweaked. So, but it'll work for now. It's a lot better than the 2 pieces that it was in previously. And Dad, Dad did a real nice job of welding that up. I'm pretty sure Dad finds challenge in all that because he gets really serious about it. So that's there. Obviously I got the deck off of it just to make things easier. I got tubes put in the front tires. The sidewalls, especially, it's the inner sidewall on this one. Actually, I think it's the inner sidewall on both of them, are kind of scary, but they've been holding there. So really, as long as they don't split and let the tear pinch the tube. The rear tires are perfectly fine. They had air in them when I got it, so they never squatted and split the sidewalls, which is good. The deck, I couldn't get the damn thing. It was stuck all the way down. Well, the way this works, obviously the belt goes like that, and your engine pulley is right here where my hand is. Well, as the deck goes up and down, this whole assembly has to do this to keep the tension even on, or keep the tension the same on the belt, no matter where the deck position is. And they did that through this bell crank, and then this whole deal right here that slides back and forth. Well, this slide is all frozen. So, yeah, she can come out here. So, and the deck is all full of shit to begin with, so I got to pull the covers off and clean all that up, and it's probably going to need a new belt, because if it was sitting there full of grass for that long, I guarantee the belt's shot. This one is surprisingly not that bad, but if you do one, you're going to do them both. The underside, I mean, you can tell they mowed with it, and it got parked, and they never cleaned the deck off, but the underside of it looks pretty good. I dare say them blades have seen the end of their life. Can't believe those are too balanced anymore, neither. So other than right here where they busted the chunk out of the deck is actually in really nice shape. It needs one new wheel because that one's been smashed. And you go to pick this deck up and you expect it to be heavy because it's a 42-inch deck. It's not super huge, but it's, for the standards of the time, it was big. And it doesn't weigh shit. But I actually today found, you'd think Jacobson stuff would be easier to find rather than the Moline stuff. And I tried looking up because there is no attachment information in the manual for that tractor. As far as like, you'd think the mower deck of all things would at least be in the tractor manual, because you'd think you bought the tractor, you get in the deck with it. Well, the deck is its own manual. The snowblower, basically all the attachments have their own manuals. Well, I initially searched for a Jacobson deck manual, came up with nothing, and just for shits and giggles, I typed in Minneapolis Moline 112 on eBay, and the very first thing to pop up was a new old stock Minneapolis Moline 42-inch deck manual for this deck. So now I've got an original Minneapolis Moline manual for the tractor and an original Minneapolis Moline manual for the deck. Go figure. I had to pay more for the deck manual than I did for the tractor manual, but they're both original Minneapolis Moline, which is neat. They're not a reprint, because I don't really like reprint manuals. I prefer to have the original ones. The reprints always look like garbage. So, yeah, that's where we're at. But I just dumped a little bit of fuel into it. The battery's hooked up. It's got Arky Sparky, at least at the points. I didn't check the plug, but I did clean the plug up, and it looked perfectly fine. The combustion chamber's nice and clean. There's not really any carbon buildup in it or anything. Wow, this is really the first time I've sat on this thing and paid attention. It ain't our Sears, I'll tell you that much. The seat could stand to be a little bit higher. But at this time when they were building this thing, everybody was also still trying to figure out what a riding mower was supposed to be as well. So it's still not the most uncomfortable one I've ever sat on. But anyway, so this would be your hydro lever, which is currently not hooked up to the hydro because that connecting link between it and the throw arm on the hydro is missing. This is the hydro disconnect, so that if you needed to move the tractor without it running, and you turn this way and it disengages it, and you turn it that way. Sorry, you turn it what would be clockwise and it engages the hydro. Counterclockwise, it disengages. Right now it's disengaged, so it won't try to take off on me with that shit being unhooked down here. This tractor must be earlier. You can go outside. Must be earlier than what my book is, because in the book, for the parking brake, it shows coming out of the dash right here, a lever with a knob on it, and you depress the brake and pull the knob out and let off the brake, and it locks it, kind of like the brake lock on a 50 or a double auto 50 series Oliver with a little hook down here. This one, and that's why I'm thinking it's earlier, because it seems like it'd be going backwards in design from the one right here. You push the clutch, and there is and it's obviously missing. It's broke off down in the block. There's a little piece of round stock that's connected to the brake linkage, and there's a little square block in it with a threaded hole, and there's just a rod that comes up here with a turn knob, and you depress the clutch, turn that knob, it pinches the round stock in that little block, and that's what locks your brake forward. It seems like a little hokey, I guess, but is what it is. Obviously not the right steering wheel, not the right grill. I finally did find a picture of what the right grill is supposed to look like. But anyhow, I think that's basically where we're at. I didn't video any of the work I did to it because it took place over multiple days, and it would have just, with harvest and everything, it would have been hard to tie it all together into one coherent video. And really, there wasn't a whole lot interesting going on anyhow. It was putting the carburetor back on and whatnot, so. But anyhow, battery's hooked up. It's got fuel in it. When this is all said and done, I'm gonna have to get another end for this is a cable. It's got a GM side terminal end on it, but it just seems kind of puny for a vehicle battery. But either way, it's got the wrong end on it, but there's plenty of cable. I mean, it's like a 1.5 feet too long. Just cut the cable off, get the right, correct, just regular eyelet end for it, and put a new end on that cable and be good. So with that being said, I guess we're ready to see if she'll fire. So we'll give her a little throttle, and we'll give her full choke, and it's probably going to take a minute to prime the fuel system up. So, finger crossed. This is probably the first time this thing's ran in at least 30 years, because anybody I've talked to said that's the last time they remember any of the barns being open that this thing came out of. Like, I didn't go to the auction to show you video, but there was literally trees with trunks the size of that front tire growing in front of the barn doors. Like, that's how long this thing has been in there. And look at her go. Holy shit! That makes me so happy. Just sitting there picking them off like it ran yesterday. Well, there you go. Now it runs, we just got to make it move. I did check the hydro oil previous to this whole thing, and it was low, but it looked like there was still some in it, so I didn't mind trying to start it, but I didn't want to add anything to it because I want to drain it and put all new in it. Book says it's supposed to take type A ATF. have to talk to Dad and see what he thinks. I might just dump High-Tran in it, because High-Tran is going to be just as good or better than automatic transmission fluid. Obviously, back in this day, automatic transmission fluid would have been better than any hydraulic oil, but now High-Tran is way better. But might dump High-Tran in it, because High-Tran is going to be cheaper and easier to obtain than ATF. So, but looks a lot better with the hood and the grill on it. And nothing really fits quite right, because the grill's still all foobarred, but it looks a damn sight better than just a engine and nothing at all. So, anyhow, that's that. That makes me happy. Hopefully we can get it to move. I did, just for shits and giggles, throw it into gear and see if I can get it to move, and it wouldn't move. So I don't know if it's just because it's so low on ATF, or if it means that the hydro's out. God, I hope it doesn't mean the hydro's out. I mean, those Sunstrand hydros are pretty damn bulletproof. I have a hard time believing it's out. But the other thing that worries me is, unless something's not working right, when you kick it into gear, you can still push it back and forth. And when you kick it into gear, it shouldn't freewheel. I don't think. I think that's the whole point of the hydro lockout. But I don't know. So, the other thing I think I'm going to do, or the other thing I'd like to do, because the rear wheels do not track in the same track as the front wheels, and that bugs the shit out of me. I think I'm going to flip-flop the rear wheels, and that should put the rear wheels tracking the same as the front wheels, because the thing about Jacobson was this way, or Simplicity was this way. I think some wheel horses were this way. These are actually built like a row crop farm tractor, where you have hubs on keyed axles, so you can actually slide the hubs on the axles to adjust your wheel spacing, or you can, with the dish and the wheels, you can flip-flop. You can basically adjust the rear wheel track on these things like you can on a row crop tractor. Obviously, front axle's fixed, but you can do it to the rear wheels. But the rear hubs are already out to the end of the axle stub, so I think if I flip-flop the wheels, they should line up. And these have already rubbed the fenders at some point, because the paint's gone. And actually, if you look under the seat in the toolbox, something right here has actually made pooch the metal in right here, and it's thin. Like something was actually rubbing hard there for a period of time. But I want to do that, and then that will also allow me to put some Baby Moon hubcaps on it, because they were an option for these things, which we got to set up there on the shelf. I think it'd look sharp with some hubcaps on there, which the way the wheels are right now you can't do because the valve stem's in the way, but if you flip them around you can do it. And I gotta find, there's a stamped steel cap that's supposed to cover the axle, and it's missing on this one, so I gotta find that. I think I've located a guy. I gotta go back and refine the contact information. I think I found a guy that's reproducing the battery hold down and cover for these things to original specification. So rather than try to hunt down an original one, you can just buy a new one. And it's got the battery box lower portion, the hold down, and the steel cover that goes over top, and the drawdown bolts. So it's got all the whole schmear brand new. So, and I gotta put my screen back on here now that I know we're good in that situation. So anyway, it runs, so that hurdle is covered. So I guess that's it for this one. We'll catch you guys on the next one.